There you go.
Yeah. I think we can get it started, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for coming. We're really excited to have this discussion. It's a topic that's really dear to our hearts. And if everybody could mute themselves, that would be great. And hopefully you can hear all the speakers clearly. But today we're gonna try something new. We're gonna try a poll a little bit later, which we've never done in Zoom. But we're always investigating the ever-growing little icons at the bottom of the screen in Zoom. So, and the topic of today is how our careers can align with our personal values. And by values, I'm talking about your guiding principles. Like, what kind of person do you aspire to be? What standards do you hold for yourself? And I was just going to share my screen really quick to show some examples. And what you see here is from the Primitive Spark site. And these are our values, these words in gray here. So that's kind of what we're talking about. And everybody has values, whether you really think about it or not. But it's definitely good to be cognizant of these. And, you know, so if you think about it more, then you're going to remember them more and incorporate them in your lives, ideally. And since we spend a good majority of our time or our waking hours at work, it's important to align what you're doing with what you believe. So, and many people struggle with this because, hey, it's not easy to find alignment. Your first job is never, you know, perfectly aligned with your values. And sometimes your values change over time. And there's always things like necessity and capitalism to deal with, as Karen mentioned. So it's really about the long game. And there's a big payoff if you can do that alignment. So we have two panelists today, and we're really grateful to have Justin Dauer with us. Once again, he's the founder of Anomaly by Design, former VP at CVS Health, and he's been doing speaking and thought leadership in this area specifically for a long time. He just published his book In Fulfillment, The Designer's Journey, that I think came out a couple months ago.
That's right.
So really excited about that. We all got the, I can see the copy behind Wendy as well. So, and then we also have Wendy Nix, who is the co-founder of Primitive Spark and our fearless leader. And she's much more than just a designer. She's our kind of our cultural leader at our company, and has had a profound effect on me as a person, but also our company culture. So we've been thinking about this a lot. And so I'd like to kick it off. And also, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat here, and we'll get to them as we have time. But let's give it a start here with the first question. I'm going to start with Wendy. So in order to feel more aligned in our careers, we have to know in the first place what our values are to begin with. How, Wendy, do you go about discovering what your values are? And when everybody's trying to tell you what your values are, how does that work?
Yeah, for me, thank you, Chris, for the nice interruption, by the way. For me, way back when I was trying to figure out this for my own, and I hadn't read as much as I've read now and learned so much. I looked at what I was proud of, what are the things that I really enjoyed and brought me closer to the things that like Justin says, brings fulfillment, and kind of made a note of that. And then I also encountered a lot of people in my life, like Chris and many others, who I really admire, and made note about what were the things that I admired about them. So those were kind of the things that got me closer to finding things in alignment with myself. And then through therapy and other things, I learned that when you are upset or you get angry is because there is a boundary that is being crossed. And in some cases, most cases. And so those boundaries, when they're crossed, is because they're crossing your values. There is something that is really important to you that has been trampled. And so that shows you what value it is that you hold dear to yourself, and it's not being respected. So that's a kind of like a very simple way to start touching the things that are important to you, which leads you to your values. And I know, Justin, you have a section in your book that talks about that, and you go through a similar what and kind of different process, but I don't know, you want to add something to that maybe?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. And I appreciate your response. I would say as I've gotten more, how do I say this delicately, more advanced in my dotage, if you will, further along in my career, maybe that's the way to say it. I've gotten more introspective, like less like what does it all mean, ruminating, like navel gazing, but more trying to discover where my fulfillment derives. As you know, obviously that's a topic that's near and dear to me, and where fulfillment is derived is from values alignment. So I've been able to slow down, like Wendy said, like she aligns herself with folks where she could do her best work, or is charged by them, or has a great energy between them. I've tried to like understand like why am I charged by this person? Why did I thrive in this environment versus that one? And by being able to I use the term pause with intent a lot in my writing and my speaking. And it's less just pausing to pause, but more getting value out of slowing down due to X, due to understanding, due to learning, due to questioning. But like, some of the examples I give in my book, and we'll go through this quite a bit today. I appreciate, that Dan Zook joined as well. I'll talk a bit about Make Meaningful Work. Is taking a look at the stories of our lives where we felt our most fulfilled, or where we've thrived the most. You can kind of take a look at any story. Like I was walking to work and someone paused me to ask for directions. And, like, why did I stop and give them directions? In Chicago, it's somebody approaches you. It's kind of like a Chicago thing to do, to put your eyes on the sidewalk and keep walking. But what I try to do if someone reaches out is they have their phone is, I've been that person before. I've been someone in a city before. I've been lost. And they, ask like, can you help me find XYZ? And of course I'm going to answer, because I can empathize with that person. I've been that person before. I've been in those shoes before. And why did I do that? Because I have empathy for people. Obviously, you hear empathy thrown around a lot in UX and design. And I think it's kind of lost some of its value and what it is. But when we kind of see those points of why I did this or why I wanted to connect, and you can kind of like dig in deeper, go deeper than the surface about why I stopped to connect with that person. And you can extract your values from that. And, a bit of a long-winded answer, but when we have that clarity, Chris, to your original question, obviously it helps us navigate where we're going. You mentioned like a version of a North Star, and I genuinely believe in that, and our values in our personal and professional spheres of existence, when they align, that is our North Star, just in our existence. So getting that clarity is very much an imperative.
Okay, well, it definitely sounds like influential people are a big part of discovering values for you two. Yeah, I think you said therapy, and also just like being in touch with how you feel. And what are those triggers that make you feel comfortable or not comfortable? being how to discover. So Justin, we spend a lot of time at work, obviously, so there's definitely benefit for us to feel in alignment in those hours in our careers. What are some of the signs that you look for? I know you talked about like feeling connected and engaged with your people around you. What are some of the signs that you're in or out of alignment at work?
Well, people talk a lot, you hear flow being bantered about a lot lately. Like I'm in the flow, I'm in the zone, where I can kind of throw it out. And I think it's always important where, something like that comes up and you see a lot of people connected to that and they kind of talk about flow, for example. And going deeper into that, like why do you feel like you're in the zone? Like, where does that come from? Is it the environment around you? Is it, do you feel like there's like the spark in the air that helps you create? And, why is that? What's facilitating that? Is it quiet? Is it having quiet? Is it having the music on that you like to help you create? Is it being surrounded by folks that challenge you or help you thrive? I feel like when you're able to like go through a list of like why I'm in flow and like crank out like 10, 15 things, I'd say that's a good sign that there's general values alignment in place or a healthy environment. And then on the other side of the coin, or conversely, when there's value misalignment, I immediately go to disconnection. I go to, from Make Meaningful Work, there's a term they use called sleepwalking, just going through the motions, ticking the boxes, and not only is that detrimental for us, exactly. Detrimental to us, detrimental to our careers, and for designers, detrimental to their work, their portfolio. And I think bigger than us, detrimental to those who are engaging with what we create. If we're putting, our less than our best out there, and I think, it's just kind of the nature of the beast in design and research and UX, what have you, what we do. We always have to be mindful of the bigger picture. We're not brain surgeons per se, or we're not, working in an ER, but at the same time, we can't foresee under what conditions people are going to be interacting with what we create. If it's healthcare, I was when I was a VP of design at CVS Health, and we worked at a benefits enrollment product, and even think benefits enrollment is not a life or death thing, but sometimes people's coverage are going to lapse, or it did just lapse, and their partner has cancer, or they're a caregiver, and they have to, you have to give immediate answers to get into the system and get in and get out and make these check boxes. And is the system intuitive? So there's always, bigger picture concerns there, things that are bigger than us, that I think in a humility perspective, and I think that's an inherent value for us. We always have to be mindful of those that are engaging with what we create.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Wendy? Signs of alignment or out of alignment?
Yeah, I think that it really, what Justin said, I think it's being aware of how you're feeling throughout your day, and finding the places where you either have comfortable or uncomfortable situations, and where are those coming from? It could be coming from things that are going on at work, politics, relationships with your coworkers. It can be a number of things, and just like being super aware of what is happening in your day, instead of, like Justin was saying, the sleepwalking, right? You can go through a situation and sleepwalk, or you can actually say, okay, I am really disengaged here. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a good.
Can I own? Yeah, it's the pause with intent, right? It's that becoming aware. And I think that is the most important part, because we can very easily start blaming others, start blaming the situation, start blaming the company, start blaming our coworkers. And really, when we do that, we give our power away, and the situation just like it doesn't make any sense. It's not worth the time that you're spending there. So I think it is important to have that self-reflection and seeing, is it a values thing or not? You know, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. So but having the clarity, again, like Justin was saying about the values, then it helps you. It's like that kind of, you know, the sticky that you have on your computer, or you know, like you were showing on the website, we have them there, whatever it is, however you want to have the values front and center.
Yeah.
That gives you a checkbox, basically. Okay, is it any of this? No. Okay, it might be something else. But I don't know if that helps, but that's what I was thinking.
So keeping them visible.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Next question is, what can leaders do to build a shared set of values and get people on board with that without kind of forcing anybody to comply, if you will? Why don't you start us off, Justin?
Yeah, I don't think that's, what do I want to say here? I think it's a bigger picture than any one individual. I think there's a tiered system that has to be in place. The organization has to be crystal clear on what their values are. The organization has to empower leaders to be able to be in alignment with what those values are. And then the leader has to have the room and the space to, what do I want to say, put values into actions as they see fit, to make sure that it's translated. There's a lot here, and I'm sure I'll say this in a broken record capacity, but actions over words, I think, is an absolute imperative. And that becomes very challenging for a leader if they're working for an organization that their swag doesn't match what they're actually doing in practice. There's a lot of,
Doesn't match their swagger.
It's a bumper sticker. Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, some things sound great in PowerPoints, but then you join the organization. I've had this happen before, and I surmise I'm not the only one, where you have that Alec Guinness caliber, my God, what have I done moment, where you're actually on site, and it's like, this isn't like what I was promised. This isn't like what we've discussed thus far.
The old bait and switch. The public,
yeah,
it has nice values on it, and you're like, where are people doing these?
But you know, Justin, that kind of, okay, so what I've been thinking about this, and the way that companies act is actually showing their true values. So if they have something printed that doesn't match, it's just because they're trying to be something that they're not. That's how it comes across to me when it's like there is such a big disconnect. Because, you know, the way that we act, you know, like even if I didn't know what my values are, my actions, my behaviors are very consistent. And then you can, you can ask someone, oh, what Wendy's values are, and they can probably tell you, because I'm very consistent, right? And so, you know, I was thinking about this question a lot, and I think what you're talking about is an organization that is really conscious about what their values are, and they do want to have their people and their leaders aligned with those values, and they have a structure for ensuring that those values are embodied by everybody, right? And I think that that is amazing, and that I wish that all companies were more conscious about that in putting in the work, right? Because that is work to make sure that that is consistent and that is evident. The thing that just keeps coming to for me is the same thing that you were saying about, you know, like the printed, you know, brand values or whatever, you know, you have them all over, but then you're behaving in a different way. That shows a more systemic problem, I think, than, you know, and maybe it's different from what, Chris, you were asking about, how you actually get to help people be aligned with the values of the company. It's just like the other coin, the other side of the coin, maybe. But it is work to get people to be consistent and to be aligned with the company. And there's got to be a system for that for it to happen, and for people to be responsible for their actions.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, this is a good mini deviation, because I think there are companies who plan to have values aligned to actions. And then there are some that have like their oh shit moment where they have the nice swag that says people first, and then they're forcing people back to the office now because they have these massive real estate deals and leases, and people want to work remotely, which is a direct conflict of values to actions. And that's why there's so much market testing. That's why a lot of folks aren't settling. I think, it kind of, the great resignation has kind of morphed along the way over the past few years. The market testing broadly, people aren't settling. Now businesses aren't doing so well, and they're laying folks off, in greater numbers. And now there's still a market saturation for talent. So, it's kind of this ethereal, yet not ethereal issue for businesses, because it's not like something that is related to output. It's not something that is related to, release cadence, but it also affects the bottom line, because, they're lacking folks to do the work. They're lacking, releases slow down, things fall through the cracks, QA isn't done appropriately, et cetera, down the line. So, I mean, it's kind of like a bigger issue. And if I may segue into this, Dan, who's on the call, Dan Zuko, I appreciate it. Him and I are working on something like a product to help businesses navigate this massive disconnection between those who have had the eureka moment, I should say, and want to do something about it. I want to go back to that. Those are saying, oh, we're preaching something, but we're doing something completely different. And it's damaging our market perception. It's damaging our bottom line. So I'm not necessarily saying it's out of the good of their hearts, but they're able to see, where this challenge is coming from. And that, thank you for putting the link in chat, Chris. 21st Century Leadership Connection and Engagement is the program that we're putting together. And it leverages Dan's, you can see his logo there, his Make Meaningful Work platform, to help organizations understand like what they are doing, to pause with intent at scale, if you will, dealing with the C-suite and those who can impact change directly. So people have to be willing to want to change, which is, that is a mindset that goes beyond business. Even if there's an issue, you have to be willing to slow down and fix the issue. So it's something we're trying to work with, long story short.
That's great. Yeah, I've loved the Make Meaningful Work series of stuff. So Dan, great job on that. And I'm glad to hear that, Justin, you're working with them on this important topic. So it's really cool. That link is in the chat if you're looking for it. Wanted to ask about where there's room too for your individual team members to kind of exert their own values, and in a corporate setting, there's values definitely coming from the top down. Is there room for values to come from the bottom up, from individual contributors and people like that? Wendy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think we all bring our values to work, right? Meaning that we bring our authentic selves to work. And if we work within that framework that we have, and we are truthful and genuine to it, what's going to happen is that you're going to be magnetic for those kinds of things to come to you. And hopefully, if you are working in an organization where you made a very conscious decision to join because you have some kind of alignment with your values and their values, then it is going to feel easy to be there and to bring yourself to your authentic self to work and be able to manifest this way of working around all around you. I know of situations where myself or other people have been maybe not so happy with how a company worked, or maybe it was a big company and they just felt really disconnected from the Borg. And so what I've seen people have done is that they bring their values to at the team level, or maybe the department level, or whatever it is. And so there is a way of coming together and creating something in a smaller sense that then can be replicated into other departments or in other teams, and it can actually bubble up right into more parts of the organization. So I think that anybody can really find that light within what they're doing and the way that they're working. I think about that a lot when there are things that I just don't want to do. And I'm like, okay, why is it that there's so much resistance here? How can I bring in some of the things that I love in the ways that I like doing things that are aligned to my values, to be able to do this, to get through this thing that I have to do, that I don't want to do, that I don't like to do. And that is the same thing when you're working with people that are not aligned with your values, or that for some reason there is friction. How can you find some kind of commonality and some kind of link that you can use from your magic values that can bring that relationship or that team or that structure, that it can have a little bit more life that can be propagated into other places. I don't know. I'm sure Justin has a more eloquent way to say what I've been saying.
Justin, like a skew of the same question. Because, I think there's pretty senior people on this call. How can leaders make room for individual people to influence and change the company values?
Yeah, you're inside my head a little bit there, Chris, because I was going to approach it from the leadership angle. First, I think the step one is the environment has to exist in which an employee can freely and openly express their values. Like, it has to, the energy has to be there, and it has to be very clear that folks can openly communicate, and they can call me out if I'm not supporting them in a capacity to help them articulate and have their values bubble at the team and the organizational level. And when I led, a decent sized organization within CVS Health, the design organization that I led for the benefits enrollment product, the design, it was like 35 people. It's not huge. But, it was illustrators and front-end developers and designers and researchers. And, if one of them is having a bad day, then that should become my day. It's my job to make sure that the ship is righted and they feel supported and can come to me for those kind of things. But something that came up often was I'm not feeling challenged, or I'm feeling, like I'm stagnating. And, sitting down and
your team members.
Yeah, that was for my team members.
Okay.
And of course, that's something that's very near and dear to me, because to me, there's immediate values disconnection at play here. And I want to nip that in the bud as soon as humanly possible. So sometimes I would have designers who want to start doing some research. I would have some researchers who want to do more PM or product focused things, or look at it more at the high level, the portfolio level. Mm-hmm. And it's incumbent upon me to support that, make sure that happens. And it's not just, no, you're the UX designer and I have, 50 wireframes done, get on that. It's not about that. It's making sure there's that room for growth. So to your original point, making sure the environment exists where folks can openly and transparently come to me for that, and knowing I'm going to take that to heart and not just, make a note and close the office door on your way out caliber energy. So that happened quite a bit. I'm tired of doing wireframes. Is there anything else? Like, what else you got? What else can I invest in? Or, I had illustrators. We had a product that would, help you, like a hand-holding product to help you navigate your enrollment plans. And I had illustrators like, I think what the designers are doing are kind of cool. Can I sit in on one of their meetings and just like riff off that energy? Like, hell yeah, you can. I think that's a great opportunity for growth. So there's growth, there's support, there's empathy, there's compassion, like all these things at play here that are demonstrative just in them coming to me listening, and me acting on what they're asking. So I think all those little facets around values and fulfillment and connection are kind of demonstrative in that action right there.
Yeah, it's cool to be in a line of work where we do a lot of different things within UX.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to be able to switch it up to, that's been really fun. But speaking of UX, I think in our discipline, there's a disproportionate number of introverted people. And I'm wondering, like, what are some suggestions you have for people that might not be as assertive to really participate in this defining values and steering their own career toward alignment? You want to give us a start, Justin?
Yeah, I think there are ways to approach that without putting someone on the spot. Like I said, having dialogues around and setting the time around, like a one-on-one conversation, just to zoom out for a second, is not just like, what's on your plate? Do you feel supported? Are you going to get it done on time? Okay, goodbye. It should always be, more conversations on a human level. Like when I would have one-on-ones with my team, I would strive to have those off-site. I would strive to have it downstairs in the Starbucks, or go outside and sit on a bench, just to reframe the energy there, that I'm talking to you as a human being, not as a name on a spreadsheet. Oh, yeah. So, kind of extracting those questions around, are you feeling fulfilled? Do you feel like there's values alignment here, without like putting someone in the spot? I think are ways to go about that. And like I said, keeping it as human as possible, and not asking in front of the class, so to speak, or, if someone's a little, I'm introverted as hell. And when I go to speak at an event, after I'm on stage, and then I'm talking to people, and I'm certainly charged by that. But when I go back to my hotel room after the fact, I'm just like, oh, because I've been on the whole time. So again, demonstrating my empathy and compassion towards those who might not want to speak in front of a larger group, those who might not want to, raise their hands. So yeah, exactly, Karen, that conference, Karen gets it. I think there are a million ways to go about that. That just, again, from a leadership perspective, that pausing with intent to think about, I've been in that position before. I've been in that position before where I haven't felt empowered to speak up. I'm going to keep coming back to that, like setting the environment to allow people to feel like they can speak up, or to say, I'm not really comfortable working on this client right now. And then me not just saying, oh, well, that's the work we got, tough luck, like figuring out a way around that, or figuring out other potential possibilities there. And, as much as our responsibilities are in output and delivery and artifacts, all this human focused stuff, that is as paramount, if not the most paramount thing that's on our plate as leaders, is to make sure our team members are feeling empowered and supported to do these kind of things. So keeping it as non-corporate, non-khaki focused as possible, if I may, I think is kind of the way to approach it.
Non-khaki, I love
it. Yeah.
So I love to hear Wendy's thoughts too.
Just summarize what you said, like maybe there's an imperative on leaders to actually actively seek out these people that might be less assertive, and make sure that they're being heard. That's one side of it. Wendy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So I love the perspective of, who we are as mentors and as leaders and identifying, because we know our team better than anybody. Well, if you're doing a good job, you know your team better than anybody. And you're able to identify maybe those people that are less uh, likely to talk or to bring up things or whatever, and make space for them, right? From an individual contributor's perspective, I think it's important for everybody to know that they own themselves, they own their power, and they have an effect on the other people and on the organization, even if they think that they don't. This is like something that I've seen, of someone that is very introverted, very quiet, and they think that, because they're very quiet and they're very introverted, they disappear and nobody notices them. But that's not true, right? I mean, what they are showing maybe is that they don't want to interact with anybody, that they don't want to be part of anything, that they don't, and maybe that is not part of their values. It's just that they don't know how to come forward. So to those people, I say, bring it on, because we want to know who you are. We really do. Introverts are, well, I shouldn't generalize, but we're very smart people. We have a lot to say. We are in a very introspective. We think a lot, and people want to know what you're thinking. People want to know what you have that you bring to the table. And when you can actually go in and get people out, you find their light, and it shines bright. But it is a place for mentors and for leaders to identify those people and help them, make that space for them to bring in their light so that they can share it with everybody.
Wendy,
Yeah.
one thing you said a couple times, you said the word power a couple times, and I want to touch on that. And you mentioned therapy as well. And one thing my therapist has told me repeatedly, we discussed our power dynamics. And it's sometimes you'll talk about a dynamic and it's like, who has the power here? And then you kind of talk through it and it's like, do you want that power? And it's like, no, I don't want the power. I want the other person to have the power. So they feel empowered. And again, slowing down to kind of analyze that dynamic, and am I empowering this person to thrive? And am I setting the environment for them to express their values and feel empowered to, that I'm going to cherish that feedback, if you will. I'm not just going to take it and write it down. I'm not just going to use it once we have review time, but do something about it. So I think like being constantly aware of power dynamics and empowering our team to kind of meet us at that level. Like just because I'm up here on the org chart doesn't mean I'm better than that person, or I'm not going to listen to that person. Like demonstratively showing that we're kind of at the same level there, I think is huge.
I agree, 100%.
I love that. Yeah, you want to empower people. That's being honest with yourself about your own power dynamic is really key to that. If you want to actually be that leader. So we touched on having the swag match the swagger earlier, but maybe what are some strategies that you've been talking about in your connection and engagement talk, Justin, that organizations can use to really embody what their values are on the swag?
Well, I think it's embody their values in practice to match what is printed on the cafeteria. And a lot of when I give the talk, it's more at the employee level. But as far as, I'm just going to bring it up here, as far as the 21st century connection and engagement program, which leverages the Make Meaningful Work program, you're talking with, I'll just speak, we're all friends here. I'll speak candidly because it's the group. Whenever you're dealing with decision makers who have access to budget, or decision makers who can impact more tectonic caliber change with an organization. I mean, you're going to be dealing with ego. You're going to be dealing with folks who are used to commanding a room. You're going to be dealing with folks who are short on time. So just at the onset, meeting that group where they're at and saying, we'll work with your schedule, but we want to make sure there's rolling change happening. And, we're not just going to go back in our corner and say, ta-da, here's what we have at the end of the day, like, being openly communicative. So just in the way we engage with the program at the core level, actions, over words, like we're showing our values by working with you, giving you actionable change, not running off, like we're bringing you into the fold. This is a very inclusive process. So, we're putting our money where our mouth is, long story short, in the way we operate. And if you, I appreciate, that you put the link in there, Chris. 4 core tenets, the way we work with people: understanding the problem through our industry foresight, connecting, I'm just reading off my website now, so I hope you don't mind, connecting the values to balance stakeholder interests, challenging their assumptions to shape organizational impact, and aligning on the bigger picture. And even that challenging on assumptions nugget is huge, because a lot of people are going to come in with their values that if they founded the organization, or if they're at the C-suite and they give talks about their organizational values, and challenging those assumptions, that could be a tricky one, because folks sometimes don't want to budge, or they don't want to admit there's a problem, or they don't want to admit all this attrition is due to lack of values evolution, if you will. And I'm able to point to immediately, and this is challenging for some organizations, point to that back to the office mentality. That is just in the news everywhere now, and it's happening, with Google, and it's happening with Meta, and it's happening, and they're drawing a hard line in the sand. I'm not going to mention the owner of X, but he more or less said, come into the office or you don't have a gig, in very candid terms. And that's happening either as bluntly as that, or a little more subversively. And boy, what a huge slap in the face that is. So helping organizations kind of navigate that with some tough conversations, actionable and trackable metrics, leveraging the power of the Make Meaningful Work framework. It's a hard process. And, when you have a program that's been developed by folks who have been in the UX and design industry and research industry for 25 years, it helps us, because it's the way we on this call and other folks think. We think in systems, and we think in collaboration, and we think with empathy and compassion in mind. So it's kind of a natural fit for us to kind of talk through those cultural challenges. I think it's very helpful. It's not an easy process. Just like in workshops, when you're doing like a forced ranking exercise, it's never an easy thing, because a lot of 8 things are the most important thing to me. And you have to extrapolate from that. Well, you have to kind of rank through that, and people get a little cranky sometimes, but that's just the good work that has to be done. Kind of a bloated, chunky answer, but there are tough conversations to be had when you're dealing with folks at that level, and rude awakenings are part of the that's how we get to change, is by having those eureka moments and being like, maybe I didn't have all the answers, or maybe I could have done more here.
Wendy, I'm going to ask you the same question, but with a skew. You run a company. So I was going to say, specifically, what are some of the things you do in Primitive Spark that can help make sure that the company's in alignment with its values?
Yeah. As you know, one of the things that we do is our annual advance, which is an offsite. For both, some of you that may not know, we call it an advance because we go forward, we don't retreat. So we don't call it a retreat. We call it an advance. And so that is a time for us to really understand what is going on for everybody in the company, to see where the things that we may be aligned or misaligned, what are the kinds of clients we want to have, on the business side, understanding if our goals are still the same, if they've changed, all of those things. And then at a personal level, we have a time that we spend that is called the whole person exercise, which we each one of us, before the advance, we take time and we think about what is it that what do we want for the next year for ourselves. And this is not only professionally but also personally, and we have an opportunity to talk about those things as much as anybody wants to talk about it. And then there is an opportunity for people to either offer help or to ask for help. And I think it is a very connecting moment for everybody to really understand each other at a more human level that goes beyond, if you're an information architect or a researcher, and more about, do you play the guitar or do you like knitting? So, and the beauty of that is that it really, even though we do it once a year, it really extends beyond, as it should, that moment in time. And it percolates into like all of the other things that we do, like, for example, our Monday morning meetings where we talk about our projects and what's going on in the company. We also have two opportunities during that meeting. One, which is we do it at the very beginning, which is kind of like, so how was your week? What did you do this weekend? Or whatever you want to talk about. It's just any appreciation you want to give to people. And then we have kind of at the end of the meeting and closing, and kind of like a mindset space where we can talk about what is alive in us, what are something that we may be working on, what has come up as an aha moment. Again, people can share or not. Some people want to and others don't, or maybe sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But all of these things are just really, I'm sorry?
But there's a space for it.
There is a space for it. And I think it goes back to, what are our values, right? Like you were showing our manifesto on the Primitive Spark website, right? And that thing about being collaborative and transformative, the love that we have for learning, being whole and being respectful to each other, being curious. All of those things come across in these kind of rituals that we do. And then what happens is that, when you have a group of people that is so connected and so aligned and so aware of each other, when we come in and we work with companies, because we're an agency, we work with many different companies, then what happens is that we bring that with us. And, there's nowhere in any of the contracts that we sign that says, oh, you're going to benefit from Primitive Spark's values, right? There is nowhere in the contract that we say that that's what's going to happen, but it happens, right? Yeah. Because there is no way that it won't happen. We're bringing our whole selves, and that is something that I think it's truly valuable, not only to ourselves as people, which, like you were saying at the beginning of your intro, that we spend so much time at work, right? And so that time is part of our lives. We talk about the work-life balance, but it's just life, right? I mean, how many times have you been in the shower and thought about work? Do you bill for that time? Well, that's another conversation, but reality is, it is our life, and our values are going to be the same at work and when we're with our families and our friends and out there in the grocery store. So I think that it is something that we just bring with us in the way that organizations can ensure that those values are used and embodied by everybody is by doing these kinds of events or kinds of rituals. Justin, I know you have tons of examples of those things that you've done with your teams and companies that you've been in, but really incorporating these values in all of the things that we do, and how can we manifest those in a way that are evident to everybody, right? Like, if anybody sits down from the outside in any of our, advanced or Monday morning meetings, or even a project team meeting, right? They will able to just sit down and just like make a note, make a list of our values just by being present of how we behave. And that is what we give to our company and to our employees and to our clients. And organizations do it, like we said before. Are they conscious about what they're doing and how they're doing it and what they're manifesting out there, or not? And when I say manifesting, I don't mean it in a woo-woo kind of way. I'm just saying, as what are they embodying? What are they making present? What they are saying? What they're showing? So anyway, I don't know, Justin, if you want to add any of your examples of really cool rituals that you guys have done in the past and you're doing, that would be helpful, examples, I think.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind quickly is we called it Creative Inspiration Wednesday, which was designed to happen right around 9:30, so people had time to check their email but not get into work. And we would just not bill for, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes. And the intent was for the team to bring something to show the group that inspired them the previous week. And it could be a piece of music, it could be something they ate, it could be a movie, it could be something in the design field. And it gets folks comfortable talking in front of a group. It gets folks in the mindset to see their teammates outside of the realm of project work as people. And heck, it just gets people fired up and inspired as well. And I've had people, bring in, like one time I had a guy on my team, and he led all the developers. He was like the developer manager. He was doing some yard work over the weekend, and he had like found like the right tool to get it done, pluck this very specific weed. So he brought in the tool and he brought in the weed, and then he like passed it around, and everyone looked at this muddy garden tool. And
wait, you passed around the weed at work?
Passed around the weed.
What the hell?
After work, during work. Well, it was a very free environment. So we passed it around.
I'm just kidding.
Dan liked that one.
Right, that's
yeah. So
she's still awake.
It's about people seeing each other as human beings and connecting. And, at first, like when I would do this at CVS Health, there'd be project people walking by or developers or other VPs, and they'd be like, what the hell are you guys doing in there? Because it was an open floor plan. And we explain it. And then like next week, there'd be 3 more people in our group. And then next week, there'd be 5 more people in our group, like different organizations. So you see like this,
love that,
like lack of siloing even happen like straight away. And people like connecting from other groups. So it's really kind of this cool organic thing that can happen at that was like a Fortune 5 company. So it can happen at massive levels. It can happen like, if you're a company of 10 people as well. So just one quick example.
Exactly. Yeah. Love that. All right.
we are getting very
we're at the end
here. So I wanted to take time to launch the poll here. So if you have a minute to just pop through these questions, they're totally anonymous, although this is kind of a small group. So, but take a minute to just answer those questions if you can. And I'm also going to put some resources and links in the chat here if you want to dig deeper into values.
That works seamlessly, by the way. The poll was great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
nicely done.
Yeah, but hopefully we'll be doing more of these discussion panels. They're free. It's a good opportunity for us to just see some of you and hear from you, and also talk about important topics. So thank you guys so much for joining, and definitely thank you, Justin and Wendy, for providing your insight on this important topic. I love it.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming by on a Friday afternoon. I appreciate it.
Yes.